Glenn Varnado has never been able to answer what happened to his uncle Thomas, who was sent to Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys as a teenager in 1934. He died just a month after he arrived. Anthropologists and archaeologists have examined historical documents, used ground-penetrating radar, analyzed soil samples, and performed excavations at the now empty school, uncovering 50 unmarked graves. The researchers also found that more deaths occurred at the school. They uncovered 98 deaths of boys between ages 6 to 18 in the years 1914 through 1973. Straley, a survivor, worked in the school hospital when he was there. He recounts a time when he became terrified when a young boy who tried running away came in for treatment after being lashed. Below the middle of his back and just above his buttocks, they had literally whipped the skin off of him. His skin looked like raw hamburger meat that was bleeding. He was crying and shaking and didn't stop doing that for 2 days and never said a word. He was in shock, although I didn't know what that was at the time, Straley said. He said the men who beat the boys were known as whip masters. The school is now closed amid controversy in 2011. It was always plagued by allegations of abuse since it opened in the early 1900s. Apparently they closed because of budgetary reasons, which may be partly true. But I believe they just couldn't keep up the charade anymore. The jig is up and people aren't going to take it, which, to be honest, should have happened when the first child was beaten to death. Throughout its entire running, there was always a reputation for abuse, beatings, and rapes. There were whispers that the staff even tortured and murdered some of the students. Regardless, though, people kept sending their kids there, and over the years, it went through a few name changes. I imagine it was probably to try and dispel some of the rumors. Slap on some new paint, get a new superintendent, change the name, and here we are, we start anew. But no, things never changed here, not ever. We have first-hand recounts of men who went there in the 50s and 60s. This place was hell. Not figuratively, but real hell with demons in men's skin. Students were hog-tied, isolated for weeks, reported to be defecating in buckets. They had no heat in the winter months. They went through heinous torture, countless beatings. They were flogged until they lost consciousness. Some boys were even flogged to death. Some boys were also murdered in other ways. The school was said to have a rape room where the guards would take the students and abuse them. Some of those complaints came from students as young as 9 years old. Abusers often isolate their victims to keep them depressed, sad, alone, thus make sure they have no hope of getting out of their situation. The boys were cut off from family entirely except to be forced to write letters, talking about the school and how good things were at the facility. Even though the reality was they were being punished very severely, the letters coming in and out were monitored heavily. If the guards were not satisfied with what you wrote, you would be forced to rewrite the letter. They were absolutely not to mention the White House and the beatings that took place there. They were only to mention the good things about the school. I imagine they were made up entirely. Possibly this is why things went on for so long undetected. When you're under duress, you will say absolutely anything to get relief from your suffering. So back when the school first opened, they had an unusual amount of deaths occurring, to the point where they had to create their own cemetery on the property. They called this cemetery Boot Hill. In 1914, a fire killed 6 students and 2 staff members. Just 4 years later, the flu pandemic of 1918 hit, and they lost more boys. It was particularly bad in their facility, and 11 boys perished during this time. Regardless of all these deaths, their facility still skated by, and nobody seemed to think that this was too suspicious. Over the next 100 years, they continued to operate, pretty much explaining away all the accusations that people made, and somehow getting out of all the investigations into their facility. The school was segregated back then, and 3 times as many black students died than the white students. As well, black students were less likely to be recorded in historical documents. All of the information is really important to this story. It all sets everything into stone. So please do watch the whole video so you get every little bit of detail. I wanted to put as much of the men's stories as I possibly could into this. It's so important that we get this story and every bit of information so people don't forget what happened to these kids. And so people know what others are capable of doing when they're in power, when nobody's looking. So Dozier had about 159 acres of land. The south side was for the white students, while the north side was for black students. They were not allowed to speak to each other at all, or they would be beaten in the White House, which was a small cottage on the grounds. There were allegations that this was a slave labor facility. So apparently it was very important that they kept as many boys at this school as possible. Staff were basically to go to any means to locate and fill the facility. This is why such low-level offenders as young as 6 were in the school who really should not have been there at all. You could have been there for crimes as murder, as terrible as sexual assault, or even as little as smoking in school and running away from home. There really was no limit to who was in this place. Even homeless boys were thrown here. Orphaned boys, like if they didn't know where to put you, they put you in this school. And the living conditions were absolutely deplorable. It was overcrowded, almost unlivable. This was noted by the governor at the time, Governor Kirk. He said someone should have blown the whistle on this place a long time ago. He documented holes in the roof, which was leaking through the ceiling. He said if anyone knew that this place looked like this and their children were here, they would come in here at gunpoint and get their children back. The school was also making very big money having the boys work there. They did all the labor involved. They upkept the grounds. The school had a dairy farm. They had a brick plant. Apparently, the boys made hundreds of thousands of dollars for Dozier, and no labor costs because they grew their own food and they sold it as well. So this is kind of all starting to make sense now why they wanted so many boys. But they wanted them because they were making so much money off their backs. One of the survivor recounts how he saw a boy's severed hand and was told to dispose of it and not say anything, or he would suffer the same fate. One boy was seen tumbling in a dryer until his body was finally removed. Another was beaten so badly and left to die in a bathtub. Why did things get to this point? I can only deduce that the men doing this were devils in disguise. One of the survivors were asked if he believed that these men were just following orders or if they enjoyed what they were doing. And he said, "Oh no, I believed that they fully enjoyed this. They would see who could hurt the boys the most." The men who survived this ordeal also reported if you cried, you were punished and beat far more severely. It was in 1900 when the school first opened its doors, and the idea was originally thought up in 1897. The original reason they wanted to make this school was to provide a place for young offenders to go and be separate from older, more vicious offenders. Now, this does sound like a really good idea and something that we might need, but as we know, it didn't turn out to be very good. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it right now. There were 6 investigations into the school within years of it being open. Reports were of children being chained to the walls. In 1903, there was an investigation. It was discovered they were allegedly using leg irons on the students. Leg irons are also known as shackles, and they're very effective restraint methods used to prevent walking, running, or kicking. It was very common for plantations to use leg irons, and they also put spurs around the outside, which forced enslaved people to walk with their legs spread apart, or they would get terribly painful wounds on their ankles. Unfortunately, we have no idea what the true intentions were for this school, or why things turned so badly. It seems, though, that it wasn't intended for the purpose that they said, because the abuse happened immediately as it was opened. What we do know is that so many men say they suffered while attending here, and that's what we have to go off of, as well as the records that weren't destroyed. When they first arrived, they thought maybe they were going to be helped and possibly enjoy their stay. Some of them had been running from homes for so long that they just wanted to have a place to rest their heads. And the location was beautiful, with cottages made of red brick on the outside, and it looked nice. It had no fences, manicured lawns, tall pines, and stately buildings. One man said it had to be better than home. Many of the boys were running away from tumultuous environments, and that's how they ended up there in the first place. One man said it looked like college, and it just had to be better than home. But when inside, the facade started to crack and the true horror was revealed. One former student claims there was blood on the walls, blood on his mattress and all over his pillow. He recalls when he went into the White House on the grounds for the first time. It stank to high heaven. He says they turned on this big industrial fan to keep people from hearing the boys' screams. The fan alone was enough to cause fear and shock in the boys. In the late 20th century, hundreds of men started to recount their stories. They formed a group and they called themselves the White House Boys, named after the terrible little White House where they were beaten, and some boys were beaten to death there. By the 21st century, 400 people had joined their group. All of the men remember the small white building on the grounds. It was a place of true nightmares. I believe I'm a pretty strong person, and I have a strong stomach, you could say, when it comes to victim statements and crimes. But when hearing the men recount their experiences in the White House, it was really hard to hear, and I felt their pain. It was nicknamed the White House, or the ice cream factory, because of the bruising they received on their bottoms. It came in every single color you could imagine. This building was reserved for the most severe beatings. Jerry Cooper recounts his time at the school. When he first got there, he kept his head down. But Cooper said a lot of orphans were sent there. They just did not have a place to live, and they were sent to Mariana. They weren't there for any crime whatsoever. We weren't bad kids. We might have needed help in some respect, but this wasn't the place to find it, I'll tell you that right now. Pastor Johnny Lee Gotti said when he was a young boy, he would often skip school because he had a stutter. I'm sure the kids were probably really mean to him, and that's probably why he skipped school, but back then they really didn't care why you were skipping school. They just saw you weren't going. But that's why he was taken to Dozier. He was taken there for truancy at 11 years old. He says Dozier was a bad boy school and I was labeled as a bad boy. But we had bad boys that were just 6 years old there, and I would always wonder, what did they do that was so bad that they had to come here? Johnny recounts his very first time going to the White House. He had helped a little boy only 6 years old out of the mud. The men at the school said he was talking back and took them both to the torture house. He said, I want you to lay on that bed, grab that railing, look at that notch on the wall, and you better not turn it loose. If you turn this bed loose, I can hit you below your belt and kill you, he said. He also shared the sad times that he was molested and the pain it caused him for 64 years. He held that in all those years, but was finally able to share it with his wife. His story is very, very sad, and it's probably not much different than a lot of the other men that went there. I'm sure many children who went to Mariana had a story just like this. There were very many reports of the guards mistreating the students, and allegations that the guards were sexually abusing them even in 2010. Apparently, they closed the facility due to budgetary reasons, but the school was supposed to be evaluated in 2009 for the allegations, but they refused, so they were finally shut down in 2011. But in 2012, because there were so many unmarked graves and rumors and questions, researchers from the University of South Florida were finally authorized by the state to conduct research on the facility. When they were searching the school grounds and doing their research, they found 55 burials, as well as 100 deaths were found to be recorded in historic documents. In 2019, survey work for pollution cleanup was being done at the school, and a further 27 suspected graves were discovered. They found these by using ground-penetrating sonar. And sadly, it appeared in one area alone there was 27 graves. And apparently in some graves, boys were stacked on top of one another. If they can use this sonar in one area, why aren't they being authorized to check the whole school grounds? There must be more boys. There has to be. Jerry Cooper was sent to the school in 1961. It was then called the Florida School for Boys. He was 16 when he attended. He said after a few weeks he learned of the beatings firsthand. He says he didn't know when it was coming. These were not spankings, these were beatings, brutal beatings. They came for him in the middle of the night. He was fast asleep, dead to the world. They snatched him from his bed at 2 a.m. They took him outside, pitch dark. He was still in his pajamas. They dragged him across the soaking wet, manicured lawn toward the quaint, concrete building called the White House. Shut your effing mouth, one of the men told him. What do you know about a runner? He saw a limp figure lying just outside the door. He looked closer, and it was a boy, unmoving with blood on his pajamas. Suddenly he heard, I think we done killed him. I'm sure by then he'd heard the rumors about this place. He probably never expected he'd be there so soon. The thoughts that must have been going through his head. What was coming for him in this place? He slowly stepped through the door and tripped and fell face first. A man grabbed him violently and slung him to the bloody mattress. Bite that pillow! Over his shoulder he could see the man had only one arm. Lay down, hold the rail, don't make a sound. They then tied his feet and began. He says, the first blow felt like an explosion. It lifted me 1.5 feet off that bed. He recalls, every time the strap would come down, you could hear the shuffle of their shoes on the concrete because their feet would slide, and you could hear the shush, shush, bam. The strap hit the wall, then the ceiling, then thighs and buttocks and back. Cooper then passed out from the shock and pain. He was told later by another boy who'd heard the attack that he had counted 135 lashes that were laid on his body that night. I can almost feel a piece of that child trapped forever in that place, in that memory. Those men took pieces of those kids that will never heal. Honestly, how dare they? I really feel for them. I'm angry at the men who did this, and anyone involved. I'm sad for the children who lost themselves in that hellhole. What happened at this school was abuse. Many forms of mental abuse and physical. There's no way a normal human being could do this to someone, especially children, without having received some form of enjoyment from it. Roger Kaiser recalls seeing pieces of lip and tongue where boys had bitten them off from being beaten. He said he had jumped up from the bed and looked at the staffer, and when he saw his face, it told him everything he needed to know. He felt certain at that time the man was going to beat him to death. All the boys' recounts are very similar, but unique in their own ways. Each story adds to the nightmare, and we can really get a picture of what was really going on for over a century there. In 2021, the White House boys are still fighting for justice. Not only for them, but the boys who lost their lives. They really deserve recognition. They deserve to be heard. Saying sorry, it's been too long, is not acceptable. My final thoughts on today's topic. In 2007, they did offer a formal apology, but I don't think this is enough. They deserve to be compensated financially. The people who are still alive, they deserve to live comfortably for the rest of their lives, and they should be able to leave some money for their families. Some of them were forever damaged by what happened there. This impacts who you are as a person and what you're able to do and achieve. They would be completely different today if it wasn't for the evil monster's actions. Some of them would still be alive today if it wasn't for the evil that was laid upon them. They deserve financial compensation as an apology, as recognition for their suffering, and for remembering the boys still in the ground at that school. Please do what's right. I pray that they get justice.